All right, as people start to come in, we can go ahead and get started. Hello everyone, and welcome to Banned Books Week at your library, hosted by the Adult Reading Roundtable. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the ARRT YouTube channel later. My name is Sarah Kovac. I'm the Adult Services Director at the LaGrange Park Public Library, and I'm a member of the ARRT Steering Committee. As October approaches, I'm sure many of us are already brainstorming about how to tackle Banned Books Week, especially in today's complex climate. So this year's ALA theme is Let Books Be, Protect the Freedom to Read. The messaging this year is to lean into joy and creativity as acts as resistance, and to bring awareness that most book challenges are coming from a handful of people running organized censorship campaigns. So on the screen is the official artwork created by 3 different illustrators. They are available on the ALA website if you would like to use them at your library. We have 4 presenters today who will share ways how you can use creativity to fight censorship at your library. And we hope by the end of the session, you'll have some ideas you can bring back and adapt to your own library, no matter your size or budget. So before we get into the ideas, I want to share some statistics. According to ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom, in 2025, more than 4,235 unique titles were challenged, which is just shy of the all-time record, which was set in 2023. So if you look closely at the pie chart, you'll notice that nearly 92% of these challenges were initiated by pressure groups, government officials, and library decision makers. And library patrons and parents made up only 4% of the total challenges. So this line chart visually shows the trend. 20 years ago, organized campaigns accounted for just 6% of all book challenges, which averaged about 46 titles a year. And if you go forward to the 2021 to 2025 period, the average skyrocketed to more than 5,000 titles annually. So this is no longer a matter of isolated patron inquiries, but navigating large-scale coordinated efforts. So how does this relate to Reader's Advisory? So as ALA President Sam Helmick put it, Banned Books Week is a celebration of the freedom to read and the joy that comes from discovering stories that expand our understanding of ourselves and each other. Banned Book Week serves as a reminder that libraries exist to provide access to a wide variety of ideas and viewpoints. Intellectual freedom is a core value of libraries, which means people should have the opportunity to choose what they read for themselves. To provide effective Reader's Advisory services, it's important to have access to diverse perspectives. During Banned Books Week, we have the opportunity to expose readers to titles and authors they might not have discovered otherwise. So today's presenters are going to tell you about ways that you can do that at your library. First, we have Brenna Murphy, who has worked as a librarian with a focus on Reader's Advisory for 10 years. She's the Advisory Services Supervisor at the Skokie Public Library and is a member of the ARRT Steering Committee. She enjoys chatting about books, TV, film, and more, and recently launched a new series, What You're Reading, on YouTube. When she isn't reading, her interests include hiking, cooking, cats, and travel. Argentina is next. Next, we'll have Christina McPhail, who's been working in libraries for a variety of roles for 17 years. She currently represents the wonderful community of LaGrange Park as the programming coordinator for our public library. When she isn't hounding presenters for their W-9s, she spends her free time writing, hiking, going to concerts, and watching old horror movies. We also have Jez Lehman, a programming librarian and public speaker who has presented at over 100 different libraries, community centers, and universities on crafts, job hunting, local travel, librarianship, and more. She has a deep love for audiobooks and a spreadsheet for every occasion. And finally, Katie Nielsen is a Chicago-trained, Colorado-based producer and performing who's been presenting Banned Books Week programming for the last 20 years. Katie is the education director of City Theater Company and a producer of their annual Books on the Chopping Block program. She is also the artistic director of her own production company, Outlaw Production Collective, which creates unique live events and experiences that showcase and foster talents of her associates. Having relocated to Colorado in 2019, Katie has brought the Books on the Chopping Block program to her local Colorado community while still working to continue the tradition with City Lit in Chicago each fall. So they will all walk you through different ideas that you can bring back to your library. At the end, we'll have some time for Q&A, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat at any point, and then we'll answer them at the end. So with that, I'm going to pass things over to Brenna Murphy, who will tell us about Banned Books Week activity at the Skokie Public Library.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm just going to get my slides up here. All right. Hello, everyone. So as Sarah said, my name is Brenna Murphy. I'm the Advisory Services Supervisor here at the Skokie Public Library. I have been coordinating our Banned Books Week activities for going on 4 years now. And with all of our presenters today, I'm going to share what's worked for us. So you know your library, you know your community the best. This is really just to give you some ideas. You can take what you want, leave the rest, make adjustments as you see necessary. So with the interest of keeping our community in mind, I want to tell you a little bit about Skokie. We have quite a large immigrant population. In the last census, 37.5% of our residents were born outside the US. So what that means is that the concept of Banned Books Week might not be familiar to everyone. They might be coming from countries with a different history or experience with censorship. We have quite a few folks from Russia, for example. So we want to try and meet people where they are and try to make things accessible for folks from any background. On the other end of the spectrum, our local school districts do a great job teaching about Banned Books Week as part of their curriculum. I think they do it in middle school. So every year we have some middle schoolers come in and they're like, oh, we already learned about Banned Books Week in school, and they're actually telling us what they know. So we have like two completely different ends of the spectrum of people knowing quite a lot about it and folks who are completely new to it. So our philosophy is that we want to have direct conversations and engage with people around this topic rather than a more passive approach. The main thing that we do is a table in our lobby, which I'm going to get into in a moment. But I just want to say we have on occasion had people approach our table, they see the sign, they see the books, and they're like, why do you want to ban these books? Which is, of course, the opposite of what we want to do. So that's why we want to have direct conversations so we can kind of correct that. If we just had a display that said Banned Books Week, that might not make sense to a lot of our patrons, and we don't want them to come away with the wrong idea. So I'll also note that we are very fortunate that we haven't had any book challenges escalate at our library or in our community. So this more direct outreach style has worked for us. So as I said, the main thing that we do is this pop-up style table. We do this on the first floor of our library. It's 2 hours a day, each weekday during Banned Books Week. We do the 4 to 6 hour, trying to catch folks from the after school, after work crowd. It's a public program. It is in our newsletter. It's on our website. It is not registered. We definitely catch the most folks who are just walking by and we engage them in a conversation, but we do occasionally have people who have seen it promoted that will come in for that reason. We always have 2 staff members working the table together. That's in case it gets too crowded, which can happen if we get like a large group of teens coming in. And also in case the conversation gets challenging, so you have another staff member to back you up. That's rare, but it can happen. This is a cross-departmental effort, so we have folks from children, teen, and adult all working together. I've been lucky. I've had a lot of staff volunteer to work the table because it's a cause that a lot of people care about. Another thing we do is we offer our teens a half hour of volunteer credit for stopping by the table. They have to talk to us. It doesn't even have to be for half an hour, but it's a way for them to get their volunteer credit and also a way for us to get them to engage with us. And often when we start talking, they'll actually get really into it, which is pretty cool. Just gonna leave this up for a moment. This is our what it looks like in our calendar, the program. So the best way that we found to draw people in is to give them an activity. So we do trivia. We have like a big projector that we keep next to our table, and people will walk by and we'll say, hey, do you want to play trivia and win a prize? Which sounds really appealing to people, so it's a great way to get them interested. It's only 5 questions. It's all multiple choice, so it's like low pressure. We always have one question about the number of titles targeted in a year. Unfortunately, C was the answer with this one. And we get a lot of surprise reactions or questions, or people are like, wow, that many books. So it's a good way to get the conversation going. This template here is from bannedbooksweek.org, and it is free. Some libraries will do full-scale trivia programs. That's not quite what we're doing. Ours is more scaled down, but the website does have some useful resources. And of course, everyone gets a prize for playing trivia, whether or not they get the questions right or not. These are our prizes. They are house-made buttons. Our graphic designer makes the designs, and then we have our volunteers put them together with a button maker. You could, of course, purchase them if you didn't want to do all of that. The first year we did button making as a craft activity where people could like choose their own design and make the button themselves. But those of you who have worked with button makers know that they were like really finicky and it kept getting jammed. And after that, we just dropped it and we made the buttons ahead of time to give out as they were. So we have some options that say a variation of read banned books. And then we have some that have the actual book covers on them. So I know we have Genderqueer and Entangled Makes 3 here, and I know we've done a few others as well. These are super popular, so we bring them back year to year. We'll see patrons like wearing them on their backpack or on their jacket, and staff really like them as well. Staff wear them. Of course, we display books from the Challenge Books list on our table. Of course, we're encouraging people to check them out because it helps with circulation, but it's also another way to draw people in. We've had people see The Handmaid's Tale on there and they'll say, oh, I read that in school. Why is that one on there? So it's just a good way to start the conversation. We had a mom and daughter, that's the photo on the right here, who came and looked at the books, and they actually took one, sat down there and read it, and then we had this whole conversation about Banned Books Week, and it was a really beautiful moment. I'm glad we got to get a picture. We've also tried putting stickers on the books that say why the book was banned or challenged. We stopped doing that for a few reasons. First of all, it obstructed some of the cover, but also sometimes the reason is kind of complicated or there's multiple reasons. So instead, we just keep a laptop handy so we can pull up the reason. A lot of people do ask that why a certain book is on there, so we're able to look it up pretty quickly. I think my favorite interaction that I had around the display was a group of teens who came by and they were like, they want to ban Captain Underpants? That's whack. And then we had like a whole conversation about why it was indeed really whack. So that was pretty cool. Some conversation tips, and just knowing staff might come into this with some anxiety due to the nature of the topic. I would highly recommend having some talking points ready, even if you do a different variation of this. I'm happy to share ours if you want to email me after this presentation, but there's a few things that are good to keep in mind. The one thing I tell folks is like, here's how I would explain our position. It's up to the individual or the parent or guardian to determine what someone should read. So a parent might say, that book isn't right for my child or not right for my child right now at this age. It's not their right to determine that for someone else's child. So I think that kind of framing can be helpful. Another good thing to review is the difference between banned, challenged, and censored. And as I said before, having 2 staff there in case the conversation gets difficult really puts our staff at ease. As far as I know, in the 3 years we've done this, we've only had 2 difficult conversations. The one that I know the most about, it kind of became like a 10-minute circular conversation where the librarian was doing a great job of explaining things and the patron just wasn't going to agree. And eventually she did, I think, the exact right thing and was like, you know what, we see this differently. I'm going to end this conversation and walk away. And because there was someone else at the table, that person, could take over for a bit. But yeah, sometimes it's going to get a little bit heated, and that's why it's great to have someone else there. So another thing I would say is know what your collection procedures are, where to find them, and what the process is if someone does complain about one of your materials. You want your staff to know how they should respond to those types of questions because people will ask. Another thing we do is conversation starters. So we have a physical handout that we'll give folks if they want more information. These are really good for patrons that want to go a little deeper with the engagement. They tend to be people who saw it promoted and came in specifically to talk about Banned Books Week. Also with the teen volunteers who are coming by, we can sometimes get them into a deeper conversation. But these are just some different ways to think about it or reframe. So moving on from the table model, I'm going to share a few other Banned Books Week things that we have done over the years. This includes blog posts, social media, and book lists. So every year, one of our librarians updates this blog post with the ALA theme, numbers for the year, and it's just kind of an overview about why the week is important to public libraries. Another thing that we have done is curated lists on our website. Our ILS is BiblioCommons, so we create our lists through there and they link directly into the catalog. Depending on what your library uses, you may or may not be able to do this in the same way, but BiblioCommons allows us to add a personal note in here. So each book comes with a blurb from a staff member about why they love the book. And to accompany this, we also had some photos on social media of staff posing with their chosen book. Hey, that's me. So in this series, we had one for each day of the week during Banned Books Week, different staff member each day, and that kind of sends the message, our staff are in solidarity on this. Unfortunately, if you look at the second photo, you can see the public comments saying, disgusting child grooming. With this topic, that's always a possibility. Our policy is not to remove comments or to engage, so it's just there, it's still there. We are looking at doing another series like that this year, so that's not going to stop us. And you can also see there's 145 likes in addition to the one negative comment here. And all the other photos in the series either had no comments or positive comments. So this really was an outlier. I would say that the reception overall has been very positive from our community. I would say like 99% of our interactions about Banned Books Week, people are positive, they're curious. Hopefully they're coming away learning a little bit something new about Banned Books Week, and that makes all of it worth it. And that is all for me. I will just leave my contact info up here for a moment. If you have any questions, you want to reach out. If you would like to see our handout or talking points, I'd be happy to share those. Thanks, everyone. And I believe I'm handing it over to Christina.
Yes, you are. As soon as I can, there's the video thing. Couldn't find it. 1 second. Here I am. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Brenna. As Sarah mentioned earlier, I am the programming coordinator for the LaGrange Park Public Library, and I've been here for almost 9 years, and we've been doing Banned Books Week stuff ever since then. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and where some of our inspiration for some of the programming and things that we do come from. So let me get my screen up here for you. Okay. So we go a little bit beyond Banned Books Week. We're huge supporters here of the freedom to read every single day of the year. So we'd like to dedicate a little more than just the week. So we do Banned Books Month. And we have a lot of fun stuff. Some things are a work in progress, but I will share a lot of the programming that we have done previously and some of the plans for this year. So I did want to share a few of our missions and policies because they really highlight our library's stance on access to information for all patrons, as well as our dedication to providing a safe space to explore the experiences of all people including those that are different from our own. So we want our patrons to feel seen while also offering a window into a world they may have never experienced, especially when a lot of those stories seem to come under attack. So our mission, the LaGrange Park Public Library, is a welcoming and inclusive community center connecting residents to informational, cultural, and educational resources. And our vision is enriching lives. And we find that sharing stories and allowing people access to them is one of the ways that we can enrich everyone's life. And then we have our material selection policy. The library maintains a diverse and equitable collection that supports varied viewpoints, respects a wide array of cultures and experiences, and allows for all members of the community to feel included and represented. So this lends itself directly to our programming and particularly how we celebrate Banned Books Month. As Brenna mentioned, this is a great thing for your staff to be able to reference in case anyone has questions. Your selection policy, as well as what to do if somebody challenges something. So we have our yearly reading challenge. This started about 3 years ago, in addition to our regular annual winter and summer reading programs. But this one's a little more narrow in scope because we focus on banned and challenged materials. So we use Beanstack for all of our reading challenges, including this one. So patrons can use the website or the app for that. The challenge itself runs for 1 month. We want to make sure people have enough time. It's a busy time of year, and we're big fans of Halloween over here, so they tend to overlap. So we want to make sure that people have time to read and log all of their efforts and everything on there. So we give them a little extra time. So in this challenge, we ask people to either read banned books or research censorship for 2 hours. It's not a ton of time, but we provide them with book lists, which I'll show you in just a moment, as well as links to articles, especially those from ALA. So people can very easily find what they're looking for to help educate themselves on this topic. You can see on the bottom of the screen there some of our banners that we've used for this program. So we started off doing our own designs, but then we adopted ALA's last year because we were all so in love with the Censorship is So 1984 theme. So patrons that complete the challenge, that do the 2 hours of reading, they all receive a bookmark and a sticker, and those we purchased from the ALA store. And then all participants are entered into a drawing for a tote bag and a gift card to an independent bookstore. We like to collaborate with local businesses and support them. So we've been giving gift cards to Barbara's bookstore for the past few years. And because they're not super local, it's a little bit of a trek. We want to make sure that that is accessible to patrons. So we've been giving a dollar amount that allows patrons
Looks like we lost Christina. Just give us a moment, folks, while we figure out what's going on. Christina, are you still there? Okay, I think that there may be something going on with Christina's Wi-Fi. Jez, would you be ready to start and then we can come back to Christina when she works it out?
Yes, I can do that. Okay, so I'm Jez. I'm going to go through a couple of programming things that I've done in the past and have coming up. Just making sure right screen here. Okay. So I also have some lobby drop-ins, as we talked about a little bit. This seems to be a good way to catch people when they're already in the space using it. We try to schedule them around busier times as well as popular programs that we know are already bringing people in. We find that with like important topics, people always say like, oh, it's so great you're doing this. Like, that sounds awesome, but then they don't show up. So we try to do more lobby droppings, make it more casual. And main reason I like doing these is that it facilitates discussions. We can kind of talk to them more one-on-one. So one of the crafts I have here is mini book keychains. So we have these little Scrabble tiles, and I printed out sublimation stickers of some of the most banned and challenged books of all time. And we have them little cutouts. Now I did sublimation vinyl stickers. You can also just print on sticker paper right from your regular printer. You don't need to be the vinyl ones if you don't have that set up. We did some keychain rings, some little eye pins, jump ring. So we knew that there was a lot of interest in our craft programs in particular, but also the jewelry making things. So we wanted to draw in people we knew that were already interested and build on existing interest to introduce them to a topic that they may not have discussed as much. Some people are aware of it, but kind of in a more broad sense that it's not specific. So we would make these keychains, and while they were working on it, I would talk to them about, do you know why this book has been challenged? Or why do you think people challenge things? Sometimes I would also share my own experiences with books being challenged because people think that, oh, that's something that happens somewhere else. That doesn't happen here. It does, unfortunately. It's everywhere. So I tell them I have a very dramatic story about a patron who came into a library that I no longer work at, beelined right to graphic novels, picked up a book, held it over her head, and screamed, "The library has satanic books." Now, that is a very over the top example, but it happened. And just kind of explaining that, these things do happen. More often, it's a concerted effort by a big group. And some people in the community are aware of that, and a lot aren't. So even if they're coming up just because it's a craft or like, oh, hey, I read that book, explaining to them why this is important to connect with banned and challenged books. So this one, like I said, I have all these supplies here. We made little keychains. This same craft I've used in a couple different iterations. It later became little book keychains. I got these tiny books on Amazon, used the exact same stickers, made it into a keychain. I've got some earring versions as well. Mine are clip-on because I don't have pierced ears, but got Gatsby here. And we were able to kind of expand the discussions for these same books in different situations. We also did some button making, as has already been mentioned. I like the Let Freedom Read and Freedom to Read rather than Banned Books Week, because as Brenna mentioned earlier, sometimes when you have something for Banned Books Week, people come in and say, oh, why are we banning books today? Or which books can I ban? And that's not really what I want to encourage. So I like to put the focus on the freedom to read so that we're celebrating something rather than focusing on something very negative. And we have the same discussions. I just like to frame it a little bit differently. For the Let Freedom Read button I have here, I took some designs from the ALA's Banned Books Week promotional kit. As I mentioned, some benefits of drop-in crafts. It helps attract attention and allowed staff to promote other books and services. We would usually have a rolling book display next to us, put some of our favorites on there. Provided something for kids to do. We tend to get more children for any kind of drop-in, but while they're working on it, I can talk to the parents a little bit more, and they are able to focus rather than running around trying to corral their children the whole time they're in the library. And it, facilitated discussions on Freedom to Read Week and book challenges. Cool. This year, I'm going to be hosting a book discussion, Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. So the different themes here that we're going to talk about are censorship, the dangers of an uninformed society, the loss of literacy, breakdown of community and how that also contributes to book challenges, the necessity of personal connection, and the importance of independent thought. Now, this is a book that a lot of people read in school, but maybe that was a very long time ago, or like me, they didn't get around to it until they were an adult. And I find that this book has just become more and more popular, more and more relevant over the years because Bradbury definitely knew what was coming. He predicted quite a bit. So I'm looking forward to, again, taking advantage of an audience we already know is interested, which is our regular book discussion attendees, and kind of expanding that to focus on themes of censorship and book challenges to hopefully be able to start some discussions about that in the community, or rather continue discussions. To go back to the buttons for just a second. I also wanted to mention that when we do have the buttons out, I sometimes also put out my Read with Pride designs. So Elmhurst has a yearly Pride Fest that I do outreach at, and I get into a lot of discussions about book challenges there, even though it's not, Banned Books Week. It happens in June. But a lot of books that are challenged or banned are because of LGBTQIA issues. So I get to connect with those people and talk about how we can push back against censorship, how we can band together. And I have these Read with Pride buttons. So there's a general rainbow one, but I have a different one for every flag for everyone to have their own identity shown on that. So I like to put those out during the Banned Books Week buttons as well, because they tend to be more challenged at the same time. So that tends to be a big focus. So I am going to, let's see, that is it for me. I'm not sure if Christina is back yet, but I'm going to stop my share so that whoever is next can take over.
I think I saw Christina rejoin us. Are you there?
So sorry, everybody. We're having some internet issues. Our internet just went completely out. Of course, right in the middle of my presentation there. So sorry to have missed some of Jez's presentation there, but I'll try to pick up where I left off, and hopefully, fingers crossed, everything continues to work. So sorry about that again, everybody. Let me go back to where I was. And okay, so here I was talking about our yearly reading challenge on Beanstack. So I think I got through most of that. basically, we want to give people incentives for reading and for engaging with the topic of censorship. So, here are some of the book lists that we put on Beanstack. So we allow our staff members to create these. We try to have a book list for every age group, and we have some that are historically banned or challenged titles. We do a list of the most recent ones, and then we'll do different age groups. So we even have banned books for babies and 4th through 6th graders, and we will do a list of graphic novels as well, because those have gotten so much more popular and a lot of those have received some flack. So here's an example of one. This, I believe, is the historically banned book list. So the nice thing with Beanstack is when people go to look at the book lists, it makes it very easy for them to log if that is in fact the book that they're reading. But it also helps them get some ideas for something to read if they want to participate. In addition to our reading challenge on Beanstack, we do a lot of different programs. In our programming here, we aim to provide a safe space for patrons of all ages to explore censorship through engaging, educational, and entertaining events. So we try to appeal to everyone, all age groups, all interests, all of that good stuff, get more people in here and get them to engage with the topic. So I'll share with you some of our favorites. So we do different standalone programs. Last year, we did a film screening and panel discussion of the documentary Band Together. We had a great group of panelists. We had Kay Ankrum, who is a YA author who has had several books challenged. We had Joyce from the Office of Intellectual Freedom. And although she wasn't able to make it, Keisha Howard is a game designer who's working on a game about media literacy specifically, but she gave us a really nice message to read aloud to everyone. So this was a really great program. It was a small crowd that attended, but the discussion that came from it was really worthwhile. And one of the things that really stood out to me was there was a mom whose family kind of travels through the world. They go to one country and they stay there for a little bit and then they move on. But they are based here in LaGrange Park. And so after a couple of years of traveling around, she came to this event and she got really emotional during the discussion, saying that she had felt kind of disheartened by what she was seeing happening in the country, and that attending this let her see that there's still a community for her and her family. So that was really touching. It made the whole thing worthwhile. If she had been the only person who showed up and said that, it would have meant the world to us. So that was a great standalone one. But we also try to adapt some of our recurring programs to make them on the same theme of banned books. So we have a lot of book clubs here at the library, and generally the book club that meets during Banned Books Month will choose a banned or challenged title to explore. So our adults read 1984. There was a YA discussion of The Hate You Give. And then for the younger kids, we did a books versus big screens where they read Goosebumps and then watched Goosebumps. So we still try to make it fun, but exploring what can be kind of a difficult subject. And then, of course, there's crafts. Crafts are really big in our library. I think they're pretty popular in most places. These are a patron favorite event, and we like to think of it as a way to turn a negative topic into a positive experience. So it lets patrons explore the idea of censorship, which can make us feel disheartened. It can make us feel powerless, helpless, confused, all of these things. But we can still make something out of it. We can make something positive, have a good experience, and have something to take home that reminds us of what we fight for. And this allows people to use their creativity to explore different skills, different concepts. And it might seem small, but doing a craft allows patrons to become active participants in the fight against censorship. You know, they often end up engaging in discussions that maybe feel a little less daunting than if they were to attend the panel discussion or a book club meeting. It comes out a little more naturally while they're already having fun doing a craft. Okay, so here are some of the crafts we've made. Last year they made band mini bookshelves out of Altoid tins. So you can see some photos there. Super simple, just printed out the book sleeves and patrons cut those out. They added some paper on the inside to fill them out. And then they created little shelves out of paper and they could decorate them however they want. So there are a few examples there. They're super cute. We've also done button and sticker making programs here. Staff have made them for patrons, and then we've also allowed patrons to make their own, but generally we'll print out the designs. Sometimes we make our own designs, other times we'll use the ALA theme for those. We also do a lot of displays and passive activities. We have a very small staff, and I think I mentioned earlier, we're big on Halloween here. So it's a busy time of year. We don't have a lot of people. So doing displays and passive things are a great way to still get engagement from patrons, but it's a little easier on us because we can set it up in advance. We can kind of let it sit there for patrons to interact with. So we have our big display on the main floor. We'll do books from all age groups to kind of draw people in. We'll usually throw some stickers and buttons and stuff on there as well. We did a challenge books exhibit that was really cool. So we have these big stands that we normally put our indoor story walk on, but we put the 10 most challenged books of 2024 on there, and then next to each book, there was a QR code that patrons could scan, and it would take them to a site with more information about that title and the history of challenges related to it. We put that display near the YA collection because most of the books on that list happened to belong to the YA collection. Another fun thing that we did was a banned book guessing jar. So we picked a book and took a page and tore it up, and we put the strips of paper into the jar, and patrons could try to figure out which book it was. So at the beginning of the week, it started off completely clear, and patrons could just try to look inside and read what they could to guess. But every day we added a new visual clue that we just printed out. So we did Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So if you look at the picture there, you can see a little rabbit, a heart, a caterpillar. So it got a little easier as the week went on. But then of the people who guessed correctly, we pulled a winner for a gift card. This was several years ago, so we did do Amazon, but we would probably do a bookstore or something if we do that again this year. We also had a banned book scavenger hunt in the children's department. So we have a little sheet with a poem on it that has clues for each book. And then patrons go to the shelf where that book is, and there are stickers, and they would take the sticker and put it on the sheet to prove that they found it. So once they get all 3 stickers, they come to the desk for a little prize. That's a really fun one for staff to put together because a lot of us like to write. And then one year we did a book tally. So we printed out the covers of a lot of books that had been banned or challenged previously, and we put them all over the children's services desk. And patrons could come up and put a tally next to the ones that they had read. So this was a really fun way to get patrons talking because there are some books on there that were very surprising to people. So they would see one and they would ask us, why was that banned? And then we got into a nice conversation about that. So I think the most common discussion we had was about brown bear, brown bear. That one really threw people for a loop. So it's a great way to get people of all ages involved. We also do outreach. So we want to bring books to where the people are. We have a small community and we have a lot of really dedicated patrons, but we also recognize that not everybody comes to the library. So we try to find ways to get out into the community to meet them where they are. And the most fun way we've found to do that in fall is to take our book bike out. So we've been doing banned book bike meetups. We'll load up our book bike with some titles and some giveaways and things to help promote our programming and banned books reading challenge. And we'll meet up in the park and get to talk to patrons that way. Sometimes we do it by ourselves. Sometimes we get other libraries in the community that have book bikes to do the same thing. And then we have a big meetup in the park. And this, like I said, really helps reach people who might not normally come to the library or know that we're doing these types of things. We also get involved in social media, with our staff and patrons. So I think Brenna had mentioned doing something similar, but we had also our staff choose a banned book and write a little description of our experience with it or what it meant to us. And we posted those on social media. So we did one a day. You can see me there, also Sarah. And that was really fun. Staff had a really good time kind of going through the stacks and picking stuff out. We allowed patrons to do it as well. We just didn't do a photo of them. So you'll see a couple patron favorites on there as well. This is another way to reach people who maybe don't have time to come to the library or, are regular users, but maybe they follow us on social media. So they also get in on some of the Banned Books Month action. So I also have some swag and giveaways. This goes back to crafting, where we find having a little goodie, a little swag, a little something helps us feel like a team that's united against censorship. And something as simple as a t-shirt or a button really helps lift our spirits when dealing with a topic that can get kind of heavy. So we have been giving staff t-shirts for the past few years. We started with our own design. And then last year we did buy the one from ALA because it was so cool. And then something funny that happened when we got our very first t-shirts, we posted them online and there were so many people commenting asking for their own. So then we started doing a giveaway where patrons could also win a Read Banned Books shirt. So we had a lot of engagement there. And the very last thing I wanted to mention are some of our future plans. So these are some things that are in the works. Some might be a little further off depending on time and staffing, but we would love to have a performance of a censored text, a display, guess the book by the complaint, giveaways of banned and challenged titles, potentially a history display or timeline of censorship. That one would definitely be further in the future because it takes a while to do the research. A tote bag or beanie craft. So patrons can decorate a tote bag, maybe drawing some art inspired by their favorite banned book or something along those lines. And potentially getting into the Dear Banned Author campaign or something similar to that, just showing support to authors that have experienced any sort of challenges or book banning. So I just want to end on a quote from Ray Bradbury. There's more than one way to burn a book, and the world is full of people running about with lit matches, which is unfortunate, but we can try to put out those fires. And that is all I have. Again, sorry about the technical difficulties there. I am going to stop talking now and I'm going to pass it along to our next speaker.
Thank you so much, Christina. I am obsessed with those little Altoids tins. I'm gonna have to make one of those. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Here we go. Awesome. All right. So this here is Books on the chopping block. My name is Katie Nielsen. I am the educational program director of City Lit Theater Company, which is a theater company up in Edgewater. And I also have my own company called Outlaw Production Collective. And we have been offering Books on the Chopping Block, which is our Banned Books Week programming for 20 years, which is crazy. I know I don't look old enough, but it's fine. But yeah, it's been quite a ride and it's been a really good time. Basically, what it is dramatic readings by professional actors from the American Library Association's top 10 list. As everyone in this room knows, I'm sure, the ALA drops their list of the top 10 most frequently challenged books in the spring every year. And so what we've done is we take a 5 to 7 minute adaptation from each of those books, and we present them with professionally trained actors in a dramatic reading in a countdown from the 10th most challenged to the first most challenged. And we do a brief intro of the book and we list out the official reasons why it has been challenged. And then rather than just read to you, we do a staged adaptation of the text. So the different characters are read by like different actors. And we really do everything in our absolute power to make sure that those characters in the book are represented by actors who are from that demographic, which is, important. Um, and yeah, it's been a really good time. We have different ways that we've done it classically, traditionally. We do live readings, like the picture in the lower right-hand corner there is just of your standard live reading at a library. And then we, in 2020, realized we couldn't get together and do that anymore. So we did an online version, and we did a pre-recorded video that our library patrons could view. And then we kind of realized that sometimes it's good to be able to do a live stream rather than travel all of the actors to Skokie or Mount Prospect. In this example, that big picture on the left is us live streaming to the Mount Prospect Public Library, and you can see our screen share. There's us on the screen, and then in their meeting room, they had us projected up on the screen, and all the actors zoomed in. And then the one up in the upper right-hand corner is at DePaul University. They have a Zoom room, which you can have a live audience and they live stream it. So there's all these different ways now, as we get more technologically savvy, that we can bring Books on the Chopping Block to a larger audience without having to physically cart all of the actors to every location. We also have the pre-recorded content available, and this I'll just play for you. This was from 2020. It's our little ad, our commercial, if you will, for the pre-recorded content that you could get from us. Self-explanatory. Here you go.
Katie, I can see it, but I can't hear it.
Oh no. Okay, hold on. Let me go back. Let me go back. How do I do the audio? Sorry, everybody. I'm all talking about being technologically savvy and then not being technologically savvy. How do I share the audio? Hmm. Well, basically, if it doesn't work out that you can hear it, we're basically talking about like these are the dramatic readings by the professional actors. And then it kind of shows a clip of each of the different actors who recorded like the different bits. And here I'm just talking about like what Banned Books Week is. And basically, we showed which books were challenged and a little bit of a list of why, and just kind of an example of like what the video is going to look like. So we had pre-recorded this, we paid all the actors, And here I'm just talking about what a book challenge is defined as, which we always work into, because that's the first question I always would get is like, what is a challenge? So we make sure to define that at the top, and then just kind of talking about why each book on the list that year was challenged. I see the chat. Let me make sure that I'm not missing anything. But you get the idea. I'm sorry you can't hear the audio, but it is on our YouTube channel. Uh, but yeah, basically, the point of it is that we can do a pre-recorded um, video for you that has like the different actors doing the presentations as well. So you got live, you got pre-recorded, you got live streamed, and other ways that we've done outreach. We've taught classes. I've appeared on some different panel discussions. I've done some news segments. That picture in the top right here is from a banned books class that I taught here in Colorado. I've actually personally relocated to Colorado, but I still work really closely with City Lit Theater Company to coordinate the annual Banned Books Week performances. And I've also brought them to my local library and some schools here in Colorado. So that one up there is a Banned Books Week class that I taught with some teenagers. We talked about censorship. We talked about books they read. They chose a banned book and then chose which section of the reading they wanted to do. And it was actually their creative idea to sit on the edge of the stage like that to do their performance, to make it like a little reading circle, which was really cool. And the picture on the left was from an event we did where we did the Books on the Chopping Block performance at a synagogue in Chicago. They had invited us out, and then Alexi Janulia's there, and I were on a panel together. Alexi Janulius, if you don't know, is the Secretary of State of Illinois, who he's the guy who pushed to have the banned books ban in Illinois. So basically, if your school or library is banning books, according to this initiative, you lose your government funding. And so he spoke about that. And, I talked about book censorship as well. And I've sat on a few different panels. I was on a panel with some amazing librarians at the Longmont Library. And then that one in just the bottom right is like an example of a Fox 31 news segment I did to talk about Banned Books Week and City Lit's tour and where we were going to be and invite people to come out. So, just really trying to spread the word, not only about our programming and what we offer, but about Banned Books Week, censorship, the fact that it's even an issue, because I'm sure everyone here and some of you have spoken to it. Like some people will be like, what? Book banning? That's a thing. Maybe less now than 20 years ago. But people don't really know sometimes, so it's good to spread the word. And yeah, we're always expanding. Like I said, I started in Chicago. The programming is still going strong in Chicago. We do have a schedule going for this year. We'll be at the DePaul University Library. We'll be performing in Northbrook and some bookstores as well. We'll be at the Women and Children First bookstore and the City Lit bookstore, the Edgewater Public Library. We'd like to try and do at least one banned books performance every day of Banned Books Week. And I know that Freedom to Read Day is the 10th of October this year. And so we'll be kicking, or that'll be ending the week, I guess. But we'll be doing an event here in Longmont with some live bands, and we'll be performing at our library. This picture is from the Longmont Museum. And we talk about the book censorship, but my place where I'm really rooted with this work is in the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and a part that people often forget, the right of the people to petition the government for redress of grievances, which is in the First Amendment as well. So obviously we talk about book banning and we talk about book challenge. That's the core of our work. And I also like to expand that to First Amendment violations as they, continue to get scarier. You can talk about social media bans. You can talk about internet censorship. There's a lot within that. You can talk about peaceful protesters being prosecuted as First Amendment violations. And to kind of speak to what some of the other librarians have mentioned before about these conversations getting a little spicy because people have their values, people have opinions. I find that rooting to the text of the First Amendment is like a really good anchor because, like, no matter what you feel like about an issue, the text is the text, and it's, we have freedom of speech, we have freedom of religion, we have the freedom to petition the government for redress of grievances. So whether or not you agree that like TikTok is bad, it is a First Amendment violation to ban TikTok, that kind of a thing. So in those conversations, I would just say always, if you come back to the First Amendment and if somebody's like, this is satanic, they're holding the book up and they're like, this is satanic. It's like, well, maybe that's your opinion, but it is a First Amendment violation to ban it. And that's just my own editorial thing here. But I find that really helpful when the conversations get spicy, because we do end each performance with a Q&A with the audience. And there have been people who have gotten pretty, I just keep using the word spicy with me, and about like, a lot of the books are LGBTQ plus titles. I had an old man yell at me once about why was I choosing all these gay books? And I was told him, first of all, we go off of the list of the most challenged books. So I didn't actually choose the books. And, secondly, it is the First Amendment that allows for these texts to be out there. Yeah, so it's short and sweet, but that's my presentation. If you have any questions about it, if you would like us to come to your library, reach out. I'm at knielsen@citylit.org. And I hope that everybody has a really fantastic Banned Books Week. And with that, I will turn it back over to our hosts. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you to all of our presenters today. We do have some time at the end. If anyone has any questions, you can drop those in the chat. I think it would also be great if you have things that you do for Banned Books Week at your library that you would like to share. You can put those in the chat as well. But we will all hang out for a few minutes in case anyone has a question or a comment. And thank you for your patience with technology issues. They unfortunately do happen. So someone is saying, is asking Jez if you have a supply list and or instructions for the keychains.
Yes, here I'll pull my slide up again. Let's see one thing real quick. So here is for the original version of the keychains. Let me click this. Here we go. So this is the Scrabble version, and I did not mention I use the library's Dremel to drill a hole through the Scrabble tiles, but you can actually buy them pre-drilled on Etsy if you don't have something like that. And honestly, I probably would do that next time because it took a long time. They're very small. So you can do that. The book version I have these tiny books from just Amazon. You can buy a whole box of them very cheaply. We had these because we had done the mini bookshelves that was also shown in the tins years earlier. We've done multiple tiny book things. So that you can buy the keychain bases or earring bases as well. We had real ones and then fake ones for people like me. If anybody's interested, I think I have the file for the stickers still. So again, you can do that sublimation like I did, or you can just print them right on sticker paper. I can probably send that. Do I have my? No. I will put my email in the chat.
Actually, I think all of us maybe could put our emails in the chat now, just in case anyone wants to reach out. So we have someone who says, I did a banned books display in children's. Each one had a bookmark made in Canva with the reason for the banning. That's good to know that that's a good use of Canva. And we have someone else saying, these presentations have been really helpful as I'm interested in learning what my library can do to promote Banned Books Week in Texas. Thank you for joining us all the way from Texas. That's awesome. Okay, and I'm not seeing any other questions or comments going through. So just want to say thank you to everyone and have a great Banned Books Week. Bye.